Okay, welcome to the CEO series, our second virtual edition. Today we have our guest is Mr. Hussein Dajani, who's the General Manager of DX and Digital and CX Transformation.
Correct.
It's a long title.
Hi,
And
Ron.
let me say this to the audience. If you're not following him on LinkedIn, please do, because he posts some of the most terrific articles. So I've been a big fan a long time, even before we met a couple of years ago at a conference. So thank you for being a guest. I wanted to spend some time today talking through the disruption we're going through from a CX perspective, as that is your area of expertise, because I always tend to think from an organization perspective, employees, customer. Who's more important? Which comes first? So when I read your articles, I always read them through the filter of the employee experience. So that's always been my kind of anchor, as it relates to this. So I wanted to spend some time today talking through the EX experience through the lens of a CX expert. And the title of this topic is PandemicEX, the employee experience of the coronavirus. When you watch the news, you see companies and governments making plans, and our new here in Dubai, we had our new opening statements document for opening up and going back into somewhat of a normal. But I wonder sometimes who's talking to the employees. I mean, they're dealing with anxiety, they're dealing with layoffs in a lot of cases, frustration, burnout. And in a lot of cases, that's left unattended. So my question to you, to kind of kick it off, what can organizations do to ensure employees get the necessary support to tackle the problem?
Ron, thank you very much for having me with you here. It's really a pleasure. And I hope you, your family, and your friends are all safe. Same for our viewers. So very good point. Yes, correct. I handle customer experience at Nissan Motor Corporation. And the way we look at customer experience is in twofold. You've got the external customer and the internal customer. The external customer is the one who will eventually, buy your vehicle or use your products and services. The internal one are your frontline warriors, which are your employees, the ones who you need to take very good care of in order to sustain your business. So like you just said, yes, COVID-19 came in and shifted everything apart.
Yeah.
So it's been a month now. I've been working from home. All of us in the company are working from home across Africa, Middle East, India, and Turkey. And it's very important. At the end of the day, we work in marketing. So the power of communication is extremely important. How do you keep an open dialogue between yourself as an organization and your employees? Transparency is extremely key. So what we started doing is, number one, after setting up all our employees at home, so making sure that they've got their laptops with them, they've got the internet connectivity, they've got everything set up. So what we did is we issued a kind of a bulletin, a kind of a guide for all employees who are going to be working from home. How they can get maintenance for their computers in case they needed it. How will they be able to reach out to, be it the IT, be it HR, anything of that sort. We've launched an app for the employees so that they can use that app for any requests they need. But more important is that we needed to make sure, you see, this pandemic, what it did is it shifted a lot of things in organizations. The organizations which were not ready with the proper infrastructure are the ones who got suffered the most. We're talking about huge volumes of Zoom meetings or Skype meetings or Microsoft Teams, so on and so forth. So you need the bandwidth in order to be able to sustain all those meetings taking place. And that's something I really need to give a very big high five to our ISIT team, who have been working round the clock to ensure no interruptions take place. The second thing is what management has done is we started organizing something called town hall meetings. So on a weekly basis, we have a town hall meeting. It's chaired by the senior management. Our regional vice president attends it, and where everything is discussed, very honestly, for the first time I ever feel it, in full transparency. there's no black or white. It's just
Okay.
the status quo as it is. So we talk about how business is performing. Employees are worried, will they lose their jobs, will their salaries get cut,
Yeah.
will so on and so everything was discussed in an open way, and this is what I think made people feel very confident. And the town hall was run in a way which is interesting. It had a Q&A in it where you can type your questions, people start voting on whether that question is relevant to them or not, and that question gets immediately asked to senior management for them to comment on. So it was great. So questions like, are you going to be taking measures about firing us if this pandemic stays for some period of time? Will our salaries be cut? So on and so forth. And it was great. The way this conversation happened was great.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you heard the news, but we got a new chairman on board about 3 weeks ago. So exactly as of April 1st. So this chairman, unfortunately, has not been able to come to the region yet because of,
Right.
but he's been doing an amazing job in either recording videos and sending out the messages to the
Okay.
employee, or number two, doing video calls with us. So that's something which is reassuring because it shows you the human side of the organization, which is absolutely great.
Okay.
So if I came to recap back, what organizations need to do in such times is keep an open line of dialogue, communication with their employees. Number two is
top down.
Top down, absolutely,
Top down.
and cross-functionally.
Okay.
Number two is sending out guides about health tips. There are so many questions coming out there, and fake news plays a very big role out there.
Yeah.
It's very important to make sure that corporate comms is playing the right role in sending out the right message about to either talk about positive or negative. As you can hear, for instance, a lot of factories got shut down globally. So again, your corporate comm is the right reference to come and tell you whether yes, we are still producing vehicles or things are on hold. Again, you start hearing a lot of gossip about there's a case of COVID-19 in the office, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
All of this starts scaring people. Again, this is where corporate comms and HR come and play a very, very important role. Mm-hmm. And finally, something which is extremely important is you need to manage your day-to-day business. So you need to make sure that your computers, your internet connection, your systems on the computer. So ISIT, how are they, providing that ongoing support? So 24 channel of communication. Again, the app that we have is amazing because we can request anything on it and get immediate reply.
Wow.
Those kind of things play a very important role.
Yeah.
And more important is Ron, we have to remember one thing. What we're currently undergoing is not something for the long run. This is something that worldwide everybody's going through, but there is an end date to it. Now, whether that end date is in a month, 6 months, or 1 year,
nobody knows.
Nobody knows, but it will eventually end.
Right.
So what you need to make sure, the organization needs to make sure that its employees understand that regardless of what's going on, processes still take place. So for instance, employees appraisals. For instance, a lot of employees raised a concern about saying, my appraisal is upcoming. And how will my manager know if I'm working or not working?
Right, because I'm virtual.
Exactly. So all of this, all of those, you need to reassure employees. It's extremely important so that they still understand and still feel as being an important part of the organization and the success of them.
Okay. That's a hell of a game plan to have. How long did it take you guys to put that together, specifically the work from home kind of guidelines and who to call, the apps and? Exactly
1 week, Ron. In 1 week, everything was set up. It's like, and I actually asked this question, did we have this pre-planned from before in case something like that happens? Wow. And I was told no. But the thing is, everybody decided to really work as one team with regards to one objective. So they're like, this is not a drill. This is not an exercise. This is the real thing. Okay. So we got to make it work. Okay. And when your chairman drives this, you have no choice but to really abide by it and deliver it to the best way possible. So our chairman is very hands-on. and seeing everything that's happening. How is the communication with the employees taking place? How is the welfare of our employees? How, and in every single meeting that we have, he asks, and he reminds everybody, my top priority before business is the health of our staff and their families.
Well-being
of
my employees. Yeah, that sends a strong message because, you know, the anxiety, you know, that people are going through. I did a call out of Asia earlier this week, and some of the things that companies were doing, and it was just mind-boggling to me. Some of them had to still come to work because the so-called leader says this wasn't as bad as they say it is. You know, the news media is blowing it out of proportion.
I'll tell you something interesting. So 1 week before everybody started working from home, I emailed my boss and I told him, Ron, as you know, I'm a previous cancer survivor. So I need to be extra careful more than anybody else with COVID-19 because my immunity system is not like
compromised.
Exactly. So I emailed my boss and I told him, if you don't mind, as you know, I've got a previous health case, and I would rather start working as of immediately from home.
Okay.
And I got an immediate approval on it without the need to explain myself or anything of that sort. Please go work from home. Don't worry about anything.
Wow.
And that's what you need to find in an employer.
Yeah.
Somebody who appreciates you and understand, your fears, your concerns, your worries, all of that.
Yeah.
And most important, to have trust in you that even if you're working from home, you will still deliver and work in a responsible manner.
Exactly. Well, see, you know, this comes back to something that always bothers me because you look on any organization's website, the mission, core values, they say all these great things, but they don't live it inside. And for a leader to come in at possibly the worst time a leader could take over and would be able to hit the ground running and have a team in place to start all of this off, and I mean, within a few days to have all this guidance, you have made strong deposits in employee relations as a result of that. It's very strong.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, Ron, most probably I shouldn't be disclosing this, but we didn't get any pay cuts. We weren't so far. The organization has been absolutely great. We're still getting our salaries on time, still getting our full salaries. So we haven't been harmed in any way by the pandemic. And I think this is the priority for the organization. What we were asked to do is take a look at the spending. Whatever is not a must-have, let us not spend it because we need to ensure that our employees come first.
Okay, cool. So in every action, you show the value of the people that are on the lower end of the org chart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, kind of stories I always like to hear. So from the chairman, CEO coming down to the employees, the frontline managers, what kind of advice would you give to them? You've given kind of an overall theme from an organizational perspective. What kind of advice would you give to me as a frontline manager who manages a team of 5 or 6 people?
So number one is you need to understand that your team members are already undergoing a lot of stress and undergoing a lot of uncertainty. And let's face it, we are going through a lot of tough time. So unfortunately, sometimes leaders start getting pressured a lot because of the business repercussion. You need to make sure that you don't push that pressure onto your team members. You have to be the buffer who will hold this pressure yourself rather than push it on your team members. That's extremely key because you need to keep them as calm as possible to keep delivering on their jobs. And number two, you need to remind them that their jobs are safe, that as long as they're doing their jobs, everything is safe.
Right.
But we are going through uncertain times, and hence they really need to give their utmost and their best so that we can all deliver on the business objectives. Number three is, and most important is, you have to push them to put a separation between their personal life and between their work life, because when you're working from home, that separation between when do I stop working versus keep working day and night, you have to enforce it on them, because at the end of the day, you want to ensure continuity in them. You don't want them to completely have their energy sucked after a week or two.
Yeah.
So that's something which is extremely important. And finally, last thing, sorry, Ron, about this.
That's
you
okay.
need to make sure that you start putting a kind of a ritual with them, maybe a virtual breakfast together every week, or maybe a virtual coffee together over Zoom, where you start talking about it to each other.
Yeah. No, so a well-being call, as opposed to getting right into the KPIs, the deliverables, whatever you want to call them. We just have a conversation around how's everybody doing? What are your struggles and all those kinds of things. So, I'm really, well, I should have known that from you working there and knowing you, how thorough you are as it relates to the employee experience. If we had to talk to CEOs or a leadership team or board that's struggling at this time, what kind of advice would you give them as it relates to this communication strategy that you guys just picked up, just like that? Sort of like pre-planning. If I had to pre-plan for the next, what would be 2 or 3 things that we should cover?
Transparency is extremely key. So keeping an open line of communication with your employees, tell them what's going on, be honest with them, don't try to hide the truth. If the business is doing very bad, say that the business is doing very bad. If the business is unharmed, do say that. Number 2 is keep reminding your employees that this is a temporary thing that we're undergoing, and things are going to go back to normal. So your conversation with them should be post-COVID-19. Okay. How we're going to get ready till post-COVID-19. So, and this will give them a kind of a promise, or not a promise, but hope that life will come back. Number 3 is share with them how your day goes by. It's quite interesting for employees to know how their leader's day is going by while they're working from home. Give them some tips about how to manage their calendars and their jobs. Those will be quite important, because what happens is when you're working from home, your calendar starts getting filled with one meeting after the other.
Yeah, you're zooming all day.
Exactly. So you need to maybe teach them how to prioritize what are important for them to attend versus not. And keep inspiring them. This is extremely important. You really need to find the charisma in your leader in this point in time, and not to feel the panic. This is extremely important. Okay,
cool. I read in the business news the other day that Apple, because of the virus and implications of it, are delaying some intros to new products or product upgrades. They're pushing it back to 2021. From a strategic point of view, you're managing this digital transformation, CX. What role will strategy play? And we look at it from pre-virus to post-virus, and the implications as to what it may deal with inside of the workforce.
So what I'm going to say now, Ron, some people might take it the wrong way, but I'm actually thankful for COVID-19, except that I'm sad for all the loss of lives that we've had. This is tragic. But what COVID-19 did, it shook organizations.
Yes,
Ron.
It did.
So it's been 3 years that I'm trying to push for a lot of transformation projects in the organization. And I keep getting told, no, those are nice to have, not must-haves, and so on and so forth. Yeah. COVID-19 happened. I got called into a meeting, and they're like, Hussein, turn things around for us.
Okay.
So all those projects that were considered nice to have become suddenly must-have.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm getting the fast forward on all the projects. I'm getting approval on budgets. I'm getting approval on roadmap. And to me, this is music to my ears, because now is my playground. Now is where I really start, so a lot of really looking at the pain points which customers are facing. And again, yourself, you're a customer, I'm a customer. So it's not rocket science. We're facing the same thing. Because what happened, Ron, is post the COVID-19, the new normal has changed completely. Digital has grown, e-commerce has grown. So whether we like it or not, the organizations that are not going to be offering their products and services digitally, people are going to look at them as laggards.
Yeah, it's over with. I mean, so as you said, Charles Dickens had this quote that said, "It's the best of times and it's the worst of times." So I look at what you said based on that, because for a lot of organizations, it just speeded things up. I mean, it just zoomed them directly into the future. So future state, they've really got to spend some time thinking about that as to how they're going to progress. In USA last week, I think it was Neiman Marcus, which was a very, very high-end department store, filed for bankruptcy, 130,000 employees out of work. They were based on customer service. Their motto, they were known as the #1 customer service, customer experience, coming into those stores. But what about transitioning that to the e-commerce platform?
Absolutely. There's a retailer in the UK, in Europe actually, but they've got the biggest retail stores in the UK. So I don't know if you heard about it a week ago. So those guys used to make about 325 million, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check it out for you. So it's called Primark.
I heard them, yeah.
So it went from 650 million sales a month all the way to zero. They're shutting down all their retail stores.
Wow.
And that's only because they're not on e-commerce.
Nothing
so
at all.
This is when organizations fail to really read the signs or follow the trend and be future ready.
Yeah.
If you take a look at yesterday, Tata technology company in India, which is the biggest IT firm in the world, 70% of its employees are going to start working from home even after COVID-19.
Wow.
So they announced that we don't need any more office space. We've managed to have our teams work from home, and this is going to be the new norm.
Well, that brings me to another point, employee expectations. So I did some work in Saudi Arabia last week, and what came up was that employees are now working from home. This company had a hardline policy against working from home. Now they're working from home, and they're pestering the company now. Are we going to be able to keep this model full-time or hybrid thereof? And the leadership is struggling. The leadership is struggling whether they're going to make that commitment, because it came down to how are we going to find out whether they're working, and when they get right away, they want to switch to the kind of punitive side. And I think another thing for leaders they have to understand is that we hire adults and we let them be adults. I mean, if one or two mess up, you deal with one or two, as opposed to baking in a policy that's going to cover or affect the entire organization.
I can tell you, Ron, that productivity-wise at Nissan, from working from home has increased by a minimum of 10%.
Yes.
Really, the way we're all working together in such an amazing way, I didn't expect that to happen at all. Yeah. But it's amazing how much productivity you're able to focus on any project you're working on. You're able to reach any other person you wanted to reach to. Meetings are happening much faster and swiftly. So it's interesting.
Everybody's on the same page now.
Yep.
Whereas if you were inside of a building, maybe the enthusiasm wasn't there. Maybe I'm focused on leaving this meeting to go someplace else, but I'm in my house. I worked for IBM for a long time, and IBM was a very big proponent of working from home. This was way back in the 80s, way ahead of the curve as related to that. And one of the studies that came out during that period, that people working from home are more productive than people working in the office. But lots of times you have leaders that are baked into another mindset, says that if you work from home, you're not going to give me a full day. You're not going to give me the full 8 hours. So that
this is the trust. This is the trust. This all falls down to the trust you have in your employees, obviously, the maturity that they have, and at the end of the day, once you agree with your employee on a set of targets that they need to achieve, that's it. They could spend their time watching Netflix as far as they want, but as long as they're delivering on the results, and this is the difference between micromanaging and macromanaging.
Exactly. Well, I've always so someone asked me on a call, how could we measure productivity because we have one employee who's not. How can we measure it? I said, you have deliverables. I mean, if someone is managing a group of people, there's certain things that are due by a certain day. That's your major measurement stick there, but there's no need to kind of go in and create something from scratch, which starts all over again. I wanted to kind of step it back to, because I'm so impressed at the way that you guys just stepped up to the plate. And that falls under the soft words on a website: mission, the core values,
purpose,
and which is a word I've been reading a lot lately. The purpose behind what we're doing. What are we doing how we're playing our role for post-virus?
So if you go, for instance, to all our websites in Africa, Middle East, India, and Turkey, you'll find there's a COVID-19 message over there. So there is a page dedicated to COVID-19.
Okay.
And you will notice on those pages, it starts with, this is a message to our employees, to our consumers, and to our customers, and to our partners.
Okay.
So it's very, straightforward. And those are the four key partners that we want to send this message out to, and the ones who are our key priorities: employees, consumers, customers, and partners.
Okay, so you got a 4-prong approach, and that pretty much covers everybody,
Exactly.
as a result.
Exactly.
So one of the other things that I've been reading is that I look at how companies are making missteps. They're still trying to manage from working inside of the office and not translating that to working from home. You mentioned salaries were confirmed for whatever period of time. I read about a company did a Zoom layoff for the people logged in.
I heard that.
Yeah, and there was a pre-recorded message. Basically, if you're on the call, you're out of a job. Heartless. It is heartless.
Look, I always say that in times of crisis, this is where you're able to identify the organizations you want to be part of, and you identify who's a leader and who isn't a leader, and who from those leaders you want to be associated with or not. It really makes you discover really those things. And it makes you discover as well from a human being point of view, who are the humans who look at the we versus the I.
Yeah.
Or the us versus the me.
Yes. But so let's take that point. And if you had to design a leadership development component for organizations post-virus, we talk about competencies, we talk about future state leaders. What would be some key things that you would, taking away from your experience in CX, your experience and the way that your company is ahead of the curve, the way your CEO came in, hit the ground running, how would you design a leadership development program? Or what are some key things that you would look at in building, say, the next level of leaders?
Look, customer experience is all about data. We see data, we work on data and all of that. So what I would do is the starting point is I would wait till COVID-19 ends. And what I would do is surveys and focus groups with the employees, because I would like to take their main feedback and input about how did they think the company handled this, what did they see as a positive thing, as a negative thing, what would they have recommended, and this is what I would turn it again into a kind of a blueprint for how to. So I would put it will start with what did the organization do?
Okay.
So I would show things from the organization side point of view, and then I would show something from an employee point of view. And it's kind of nice to look at things from both sides, because they either will be very much interconnected or they might be opposite. Because an organization sometimes is always looking at things from their own point of view, whereas sometimes they need to look at things from their employees' point of view.
Empathy.
Empathy is extremely important. That's really key. And I would say, have you seen the video which the CEO of Marriott Hotels did?
He's amazing. I saw that.
That was a beautiful message, extremely well crafted, very well done. the choice of words used. Really, I congratulate him for this.
Yeah, I saw him online last night. CNN from time to time was bringing in things around leadership, and they used him. And I remember hearing how he became emotional, in talking through that, because he's a cancer survivor, also. So lots of times in stressful situations, what do you learn from it, and what can you take forward? So I've always worked on the premise that you could pretty much begin the process of solving things if you ask the question, what went right, what went wrong, and what can we improve on?
Exactly. And one more thing, which is extremely important, is, COVID-19 happened, it's affected everybody, but employees want to know, what did their organization do? Or what role did their organization play out there in communities to be able to help with COVID-19? Did we turn our factories to start producing ventilators? Did we do face masks? Did we transport, the front row warriors, the healthcare professionals, the policemen, the firefighters, so on and so forth? So employees want to know this. They want to feel proud that their organization played a role in this.
And that comes back to what's being talked about now from an organizational perspective is the purpose. What is the purpose of the organization? You can't come out of this and just concentrate on just the revenue, or just the lost revenue, or here's our projection for future state, because the question may come back is that we had all these factories that were idle. We had, Louis Vuitton said, we're going to close down a factory, we're going to make face masks. I mean, those are the kind of things I said, if you're looking to try to get some grounding, think of in terms of what can the same exact thing that you just said.
And we did something which I'm really proud about, Ron, is we created a video called Ought to Empty Roads. So we took a decision. This is not the right time to go and promote our products and vehicles. This is not the right time to start selling. This is the time to show that we understand people in general. So we created that piece of video. It came out of Dubai, and then Saudi market liked it a lot. So they took the video and they produced it in a personalized manner to fit Saudi. Then our India team did the same thing for their market. Then South Africa did the same thing. And then Egypt did the same thing. So it went across the whole region. That video, and it's a very daring message coming out from an OEM, which is an automotive company, that sells vehicles, telling people now is not the right time to be in a vehicle. So we all miss the roads. But in order for us to go back to the roads right now, the best time for us is to be home and to
park off the road.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that was a very daring message. It really went viral everywhere. And that's a strong message to come from an automotive brand.
Yeah, because you wouldn't think that you guys were into the soft side of.
Exactly.
Yeah, the soft side, that would create something like that, to let it be.
I mean, putting people before revenue. That's a very daring and bold message.
Yeah. Stanley Fink, who's the chairman of the board of BlackRock, 2 years ago, every year he sends out this letter to all the shareholders. And one of the key points that really bubble up to the top in the business news last year, I think it was, or maybe year before, is that organizations really need to understand purpose. Because people don't get excited about a P&L. They don't get excited coming to work about a P&L. They get excited coming to work about a mission, the values that the organization, and they want to be a part of it. And it's funny how, when that was said, there was a lot of kickback, pushback. They were only going to invest in companies who were doing the right things. But he proved it to be right.
Absolutely. You need to, as Simon Sinek said, the why.
The why.
Why are we there? Exactly. Why do we exist? What's our role other than selling products and their services?
Exactly. I tell you, so I read a quote the other day that said, in any crisis, leaders will bubble to the top. So I'll flip that around. In any crisis, you will also notice that leaders that are not equipped for the next stage post-crisis.
Correct.
because
Absolutely.
they didn't handle it well, or they were only concerned about the hard numbers. They weren't concerned about the well-being. They weren't concerned about the people who may have lost a loved one during those times.
Yeah.
So I think, and this is just my thought, there's going to be some cleansing at the top for a lot of organizations. Because
Absolutely.
as I talk to people, they say, well, my company won't do this because they're saying this, like the CEO who doesn't believe in it, and he still wants his people to come to work. I'm gonna make sure my KPIs, I still need the revenue. I need the revenue now more than ever. It's just revenue. New leader going forward. And this is why when I asked the question about this new leader being developed going forward, so I would think maybe empathy would be number one.
Absolutely. Empathy, number one, really. This is, I can't stress enough on that. I really can't stress enough on that.
Yeah.
This is what organizations and leaders are going to be judged on, very much, on their empathy and understanding of it.
So I'm thinking tool-wise, what kind of tool you could use? So you said going forward, you get a focus group and you'd kind of spec that out.
Focus group surveys, I would definitely do that 100%.
Okay.
Again, so as I said, we're rolling out solutions. Like for instance, we rolled out the app for the employees. What I would do is actually I would look at the analytics of the app. Did it prove to be useful for employees? Did they actually use it or not? Then we start digging deeper into, for those who used it, what did they request the most?
Okay.
Because this will give you an idea about what were the things that your employees were asking for from the organization. So this gives you insight as to what you need, how you need to channel your communication in order to make it clearer for people.
Yeah.
For instance, you know that very well that Ramadan is coming, and now we started Ramadan. A lot of employees had questions. Now that I'm working from home, is there a timing that we're going to be working on, the reduced timing from 9 to 3?
Right.
From home.
Yeah.
So all those kind of questions, you start rubbing them so that you know what corporate communication needs to drive in terms of communication with the organization.
Okay.
We started doing another thing is we know employees are working from home. So now we have yoga classes online. So 2 days a week we have yoga classes online, and 2 days a week we have kind of like gym stretching classes online. Okay. And you just sign up to them free of charge, and you get to do them.
You just log in and that's it. Yeah. Take a class.
Yes.
Wow.
Another thing that we've enabled is something for, that your sleeping disorder you start getting a lot of disorder in your sleeping patterns because of stress, because of all of that.
Right.
So, you've got those apps that give you, do kind of meditation for you to be able to sleep better. So we gave access to employees to those free of charge for them to be able to start using them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So exactly. Empathy is the word. You just need to think about, what am I going through?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is what others are going through, and how can I make it easier for them?
Okay.
So
Cool.
in terms of tools, this is what I was talking about, really, is looking at the data. So be it from analytics on your apps, be it from the surveys that you do, be it from the focus groups that you do. So that way you cover the analytical and the you cover the qualitative and the quantitative feedback.
The two Qs.
Exactly. And basically that's pretty much it.
Wow. Well, you know what? I want to thank you for taking time for us. And I knew this would be interesting because I know the work you do, and I've always been a big fan of your work. So as I say, for people that are online that enjoy this, please be sure and follow him on LinkedIn, because he tweets lots of times people tweet articles and it's just an article they picked up, but you can see the passion because there's always a link to the articles that you post on LinkedIn, from time to time. So thank you so much for this insightful look at the pandemic, the employee experience of coronavirus. And I applaud Nissan for the work that they've done. If there's a way to chronicle that, because a lot of companies are hurting. A lot of leaders are kind of stuck in cement. They don't know how to move forward because the leadership style coming in was a fixed mindset. And this is more of a growth mindset kind of capability that's needed. So in closing words, what kind of advice would you give to any section within the organization, from employees to leadership or the boards or whatever?
I had a previous boss, Ron, who used to, who wrote down on a piece of paper and gave me that paper and asked me to put it on top of my bed years ago. And he said, every morning when you wake up, just read it. And it says, maturity is ability to manage uncertainty.
Okay.
And there's no better time than now. Those uncertain times than we're going through.
Yeah.
What we need is the maturity. What we need is really the maturity to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to stay positive, to be caring, to be empathetic, and to be responsible. This is my only advice I would give.
Okay.
At the same time, what I would like, Ron, is to use your platform just to thank really our employees across Africa, Middle East, India, and Turkey. I would like to thank all the plant workers, especially in Sutherland, who are doing face masks. I thank you for that. And yeah, everybody who's playing a role, you know, to help others in this tough times, tough and challenging.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron,
for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Stay safe.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.